Chapter 11. Kill Switch. Merely facilitating the exchange of information via concealed intermediary. Don't try to move, Mary Wagner said to Jerry. Don't get up. You're in the hospital. I'll call the nurse. Mary had stayed by Jerry's side since she found him lying in his front yard, out cold. She'd even accompanied him in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. He'd been in and out of consciousness the entire time. It wasn't until that moment, 24 hours later, when he finally began to wake up completely, that Mary left Jerry unattended. A minute later, Mary returned with a nurse. She stood by Jerry's bedside while the nurse leaned over the patient and flashed a small light in his face. "Hello there, do you remember your first name?" the nurse asked. "Yes," Jerry answered. "My name is Jerry Miller." "Oh, good," said the nurse. "They asked you in the ambulance and you couldn't remember." "Ambulance?" Jerry said. His throat was dry at first, and it was slightly difficult to talk. "You couldn't recall your name or your birthday, Jerry," Mary told him, "or the year, or how old you were, or who I was." "You have a pretty serious concussion, Mr. Miller," the nurse said, "and your left eye is bandaged at the moment. Please try not to touch your face or the gauze." "What's wrong with my eye?" asked Jerry nervously. "It's okay," said the nurse. "The doctor will explain. You just scratched it and we're keeping it protected for now." The nurse left the room to alert a doctor that Jerry was awake. Mary sat back down and put her hand over Jerry's. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Do you need anything?" "I think I'm fine," he said, turning his head to face her. "You rode with me in the ambulance?" "Yes, I did," she said, smiling. "You really didn't have to," Jerry said. "I mean, thank you, Mary, but I feel bad." "Don't," she said. "What are neighbors for? I saw the whole thing from my porch. I was sweeping the steps when I heard a loud noise from your yard. Just as I looked up, the branch fell right on your head. You went down like a ton of bricks, Jerry. I was terrified, so I called 911. "I'm lucky you were there," Jerry said, trying to smile. "I ran across the street," Mary continued, "and you were out like a light. I didn't know if you'd broken your neck or what, so I just patted your hand and kept saying your name, but you didn't wake up, really, until just now." "How long?" Jerry asked. "It's been a whole day," she told him. 24 hours. The ambulance guy asked if you had anyone, family, or anyone like that, and I told them you didn't. Then I felt bad, thinking of you being alone, so I rode along. It was kind of exciting. I've never been inside of an ambulance. You have insurance, don't you? Don't they give teachers benefits?" "Yes," Jerry answered. "Why?" "It just seems so, I don't know, expensive," she explained. "All the computers and stuff and those things, it's all very high tech. And they took really good care of you." "But Mary," Jerry said, "what about Russ? Did you stay here overnight?" "Russ got home today," she said. "I told him everything about an hour ago on the phone. He's going to pick me up any minute. And don't worry, I come from a very large family, you know, Jerry. I've spent many nights with people in hospitals." "You're a saint, Mary," Jerry said. "Thank you, seriously." "Oh, you're sweet," Mary said, patting his hand. Then the doctor came into the room, clipboard in hand, and introduced himself. "Mr. Miller, I'm Dr. Fritz," he said. "How are we feeling? Good? Got a headache at all?" "No," Jerry said, "but my eye is sore." "Oh, right," the doctor said, coming around to the head of Jerry's bed. He pushed a button on the side of the bed, causing Jerry to sit upright automatically. "Let's take a look at that eye. Scratched cornea is serious business." "The branch hit my eye?" asked Jerry. "Actually, no," he explained. "It seems the branch struck the back of your head and neck. But when it did, you shut your eyes. And actually, most folks don't realize this, but you can blink your eye quickly enough to do serious damage. When you blinked, you must have scratched it." "What?" Jerry asked while the doctor began to unwrap the gauze around Jerry's head. "Yes, it's true," he said. "And you scratch your cornea less than a millimeter away from your iris, a mere fraction of a millimeter from being blinded." The doctor finished unwrapping Jerry's head carefully and held his hand over the left eye. Okay, I'm going to move my hand slowly, and I want you to carefully open your eye. It may hurt just a bit, so go very slowly. Don't rush it. Jerry cautiously opened his eye as instructed. It was sore, but didn't hurt at first, although his vision was blurred. He blinked a couple of times and winced at a mild pain. Yeah, he said, it kind of hurts. Feels like I have something in my eye. Okay, said the doctor, but you can see. Yes, I can, answered Jerry. Oh, good, said Mary, relieved. All right, the doctor said, leaning over Jerry with a small bottle of eye drops. Hold still, he said while administering a couple of drops before wrapping Jerry's head again. We'll need to keep it protected until I can get you a proper eye patch. Really? Jerry asked. I have to wear a patch? For about a week, Dr. Fritz said. I'll give you some more of these numbing drops, some antibiotics, and a leather patch. In about a week, you'll be good as new. Of course, if you'd rather, I can send you home with a fresh roll of gauze. You could wrap your eye that way. No, Jerry said. I'd rather look like a pirate than like I have a head wound. Hey, from what my kids tell me, the doctor said, patting Jerry's shoulder, pirates are in right now. Anyway, we'll need to keep you one more night just to keep tabs on that concussion. But you can go home in the morning if you have a ride. The doctor left Jerry alone with his neighbor again, who sat next to him as faithfully as ever. You sure you're all right, Jerry? Mary asked. No, yes, I mean no, Jerry sighed. If I'm being totally honest, I feel sort of stupid. I knew that branch was going to fall, but I stood there like an idiot anyway and just let it happen. No one lets anything happen, dear, she said. Things happen or they don't. It's not up to us. Whose call is it then? Jerry asked. Who decides these things, Mary? I do, said Russ, entering the room. I leave you in charge for one goddamn week and this is what I get? Russ came over to his wife, hugged her, and kissed her on the head. Will he live? He asked her. We think so, Mary said, if he's tough enough. Russ laughed while Mary excused herself to go talk with a nurse before Russ took her back home. I just want to say goodbye. I'll be right back, she said, leaving the two friends alone. Jerry looked up at Russ, who stood over him, intentionally looming and shaking his head in disapproval. Russ snapped his fingers in Jerry's face in front of his bad eye. Please, Jerry said. I've had all I can take. Okay, Russ said, sitting down. Seriously, you're all right? Can you see out of both eyes? Have they checked your sight yet? Yeah, Jerry said. I can see. Hurts though. Good, Russ said, and the two of them sat there in silence. Jerry closed his good eye and rested, while Russ sat patiently waiting for Mary to return. I feel stupid, Jerry said. You look stupid too, Russ told him. Then they were silent again for a few minutes before Russ added, Oh, don't forget, we got the block party in a couple of days. Bring something to grill, meat or something. We'll have a good time. It'll be fun. Jerry muttered. I'll think about it. Yeah, you will, Russ insisted. Then you'll decide that a party with your neighbors will do you good. Exactly what you need. Okay, Jerry said, if only to temporarily appease the man before he asked, How was your trip? That's a whole other story, Russ replied. I'll take Mary home and unpack the car, then I'll check in on you. Don't worry about it, Jerry pleaded. Really, you guys have done enough. I'm in good hands here. Oh, no, you're not, Russ said in a faux whisper, leaning in closer to the bed. Jerry, you can't trust these wackos. Don't forget, most of these so called professionals are still just practicing. Chapter 12 Breaker Deadly, a demand for power which exceeds capacity. Wearing an eye patch, Jerry discovered, is a good way to make yourself look anything but sane. Even though he'd seen plenty of people use a similar patch to look cool or intimidating, like in movies, he was unable to do it himself. Looking back, he'd realized he spent an embarrassing amount of time at his bathroom mirror adjusting the patch or fixing his hair to look as normal as possible. But the situation wasn't normal, and so Jerry finally convinced himself that it was what it was. Besides, the block party was already in full swing that day, and he felt well enough to join his neighbors in the festivities. Half a dozen tables had been set up in the middle of the street, which was blocked off with parking cones on either end. It was a good turnout, with 30 or so families in attendance. Russ, with a cigar between his teeth, was stationed nearby at a grill, making conversation with a line of people providing him with all manner of meat dishes to cook. Smoke from both the grill and his cigar combined made for a mighty chimney, pushing artificial clouds up into the otherwise clear sky. The smoke looked somehow less toxic to Jerry on that day and, in a weird way, more appropriate. It was as if everything was part of some well put together production or a classic depiction of what a summer party should look like. Mary Wagner, along with other neighbors, placed bowls and plates of food along 3 picnic tables arranged into a buffet. Random neighbors congregated in small groups, catching up on their individual summer vacations and activities so far. Shelley Parks handed out name tags for new arrivals to write on so that everyone, as Russ always said, could pretend they hadn't forgotten each other's names since the last party. But that's what the event was for, after all, to remind neighbors they aren't alone and that they were part of the same community. At any rate, the party was off to a good start and everyone was enjoying themselves out in the middle of the road. Jerry sat on one table near the top of the street next to his neighbor Jake Parks. They drank beer together and watched children run in and out of random yards in a game of tag. Jerry watched the children run across his own freshly mowed lawn and thought about his perfect method, or lack thereof, since Jerry never did manage to figure out a suitable route. Instead, Jerry sold his lawnmower and purchased a cordless electric mower, one with a rechargeable battery in place of a cumbersome extension cord. The mower was also self propelled and came with a quick release bar, so he could shut it off at any time with ease. The purchase had been his first order of business after leaving the hospital. He'd even thrown away his notepad filled with all of his failed attempts from the last month. No, Jerry thought to himself, just as a ladybug landed on the table. He would only focus on his successes going forward. The time for dwelling on failure was behind him. Been seeing these things all over for the last few days, said Jake while nudging the ladybug with his finger. Like a sudden uptick of ladybugs in the neighborhood. He nudged the ladybug until it finally lifted its wings and took flight. You notice that too, Jerry? Huh? Jerry said, trying not to sound guilty. No, I haven't, not really, he said, suddenly realizing that 40,000 ladybugs was a lot, and maybe even too many for his problem tree. That's the 5th one I've seen today, Jake said, then changed the conversation. How's your eye, man? Okay? Yeah, Jerry said. They gave me numbing drops, but I'm not supposed to overuse them. Otherwise, I won't be able to tell if I'm healing, you know? It's my neck that's most sore. I bet, man, Jake said, looking back at his own yard and the newly constructed fence along his driveway. Pointing to it, he said, that branch was half the size of the one that fell on my fence, but from just as high. I'd say you're lucky it wasn't worse, buddy. A group of children ran by the table, bumping into their chairs. The 2 men watched the children laughing and screaming while chasing each other from yard to yard. It was liberating, fun even, to have an opportunity where they could freely trespass, while also running into the middle of the street without fear of oncoming cars. Although, Jerry quickly reminded himself, the real fear that summer had come from above, and no amount of parking cones was going to protect any of the neighbors from the sky falling. Don't worry, Jake said, sensing Jerry's alarm. A few of us walked up and down the street this morning and we didn't see any other problem branches. Oh, good, Jerry replied. Good idea. Yeah, well, Jake said, raising the bottle of beer to toast Jerry. Those damn things have been coming down all over town. Makes our street look safe by comparison, but 1 or 2 local disasters per summer seems like more than enough. Am I right or am I right?" Jerry clinked his bottle to Jake's and smiled. "Sounds about right to me," Jerry said. "Finish those beers, boys," Russ called to them, weaving between tables and headed in their direction. He had a cigar in his mouth and 3 plastic cups balanced in his hands. He carefully set the cups down, exhaled a thick cloud of smoke, and said, "I brought us something stronger." Jerry picked up his cup and saw that it was half filled with whiskey. "Nice," Jake replied, sipping from his without delay. "Now the real party can begin." Unlike the other two, Jerry was visibly hesitant to sample his cup until his neighbors urged him to take a drink. "Go on, Jerry," Jake said. "It's just whiskey." "Yeah," added Russ, smiling. "What kind of pirate doesn't drink whiskey anyway?" "I think that's rum," Jerry told him while drinking. "See, it's good," Russ said. "Consider it medicinal. Should mix nicely with whatever drugs the hospital put you on, too." The three of them laughed and Russ joined them, sitting down at the table. "We were just talking about this violent summer we've been having," Jake said. "Falling branches, that is." "Yeah," Russ said. "To tell you the truth, I've never wanted a summer to end quicker." "Ever since the first one," said Jake, "when that branch fell in my driveway, I've been having these restless nights. Been having the worst dreams keeping me up. I can only imagine the dreams you've been having, Jerry." "Eh," Jerry said. "I don't really dream all that much." "Really?" said Jake. Another ladybug landed on the table, and Jake nudged it with his finger until it flew off. He continued and said, "You really are lucky. I can't get through a whole night. Not that I can even remember the details, but I keep waking up from nightmares with that horrible sense of dread, that panicky feeling like something bad is going to happen." "I'm sorry to hear that," Jerry said. "Sleep is one thing I don't seem to have a problem with." They sat there sipping whiskey and observing the party from their table. It was peaceful, calm even, until Russ extinguished his cigar on the ground and immediately lit a new one. "Chernobyl," Jerry thought to himself, watching large green puffs of smoke. It was a good nickname, even if he'd never revealed it out loud. Jerry watched the smoke drift around the party, a threat to no one and everyone all at once, while Russ took a substantial sized drink from his cup. "I've had some," Russ finally said. "Some what?" asked Jake. "Nightmares?" "Yeah," Russ answered. "Really bad ones, too. I'm not kidding," he said. "I can remember every single detail. They stay with me all day." Russ continued, casually brushing a ladybug from his arm. "Kind of dreams that feel more like actual memories. Although there's no way, just too crazy to be true." "Damn," Jake said. "Sounds brutal." "Funny thing," Russ said, "it's not even really my dream. At least, it isn't just about me." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "Who's it about?" "Mostly, it's about you, Jerry," Russ said, causing Jerry to sit up in his chair. "About me?" Jerry asked. "Yeah," Russ explained. "Just one ongoing story every night. There's a new horrible installment." About what exactly?" Jerry asked. "What does your dream have to do with me?" "It begins with you out in the woods, naked," Russ began, "and it's snowing." "All right," Jerry said. "I've heard enough. I can see where this is headed." "No," Russ said, his tone turning more serious than before. "Think about it. It's horrible. Think about how that would be for real if it really happened to you. You just wake up like that, out in the freezing cold, lost in the woods." Jerry waved smoke from his face and listened to Russ intently as he continued. "Even though it wasn't me, I could feel it. The pain, the cold. It was terrible." "Russ," Jerry said, "that may be the closest you've come to experiencing empathy, and it's wasted on a dream." "Keep joking," Russ said, relaxing a bit. "I was trying to save you the whole time. I had to save your life. That was the dream's purpose." "How so?" Jake said. "Details, details." Well, Russ said, I seem to be like an elite marksman or soldier. Awesome, Jake said with sincere interest. Why can't I have dreams like this? Don't forget, Russ reminded him, this is a genuine nightmare. See, I'm out there in the woods, armed, and I'm following this other unit of gunmen who are between Jerry and I. Every time I get one in my sights, blam, take them out. One by one, I make my way closer and closer to Jerry, but you know how in dreams, distances can be all distorted? It's like he's getting further away all the time. Okay, Jake cut him off. Jerry's naked in the woods. Some people are chasing him, presumably trying to kill him. And you're his only hope, but you're stressed out that you can't reach him in time. Right, Russ said. And I don't reach him in time. Oh, great, Jerry moaned. Perfect. But you can feel what Jerry feels too? Jake asked. Right, Russ said. And there's this cabin. Somehow I can see what's going on up ahead, because it's my dream, but I have no control over it. I'm just trying to get up to where he is the whole time. Blam, blam. I keep taking out these other gunmen one by one, walking through the woods while Jerry experiences all this terrible stuff up ahead. And there are these rubber chickens nailed to all the trees. Wait, Jerry interrupted. Does anyone have a dream symbolism book handy? I have to know what the chickens mean. It means it's a dream, Russ said. Don't read into it. Dreams are just weird. What about this cabin? Jake asked. Who owns the cabin? Why are you so excited? Jerry asked Jake, slapping his arm. Might be different if he was dreaming about you in the nude. Because, man, this sounds like the best movie I've never seen, said Jake. Please continue, Russ. The cabin, Russ said, hesitating. Let's just say this is the part I wish I could forget the most. It's gruesome. And I mean in a way that surprised me. Like I surprised the hell out of myself. I hate that, Jake said. I can dream about stuff I'd never think of when I'm awake. I hate that. Truly horrible, Russ admitted. If I told you, well, it's just too much. Oh, come on, man, Jake protested. Tell us. Wait, Jerry said. Do I live? Tell me I make it. I'll put it this way, Russ said. I was sincerely scared something bad happened to you when Mary and I spoke on the phone, and she said you were in the hospital. Something bad did happen, Jerry said, mildly offended. I was in the hospital unconscious. I nearly lost my eye. I'm wearing a goddamn patch as a result. I'd say that counts as bad. Eh, Russ said, puffing on his cigar. You're fine. Don't exaggerate. Oh, good Lord, Jerry said. I cannot win with this guy. Hey, Russ said. Just don't forget, pal. In the dream world, at least, I got your back. Thanks, Jerry said. And thanks for having my nightmares for me, too. That saves me some trouble, I guess. More work than you may think, Russ said. Sometimes I feel like they're spilling out into the real world. Well, that's the spookiest thing you've said yet, Jake said, finishing his whiskey. That's some paranormal sounding shit right there. It's true, Russ explained. I spend my days trying not to think of this horrible nightmare, and the only distraction I seem to get is when something truly bizarre happens to me for real. Like what? Jerry asked. Russ gave him a knowing look, and both men knew the other was thinking about the collection of photographs Russ had shown Jerry some weeks ago and the lazy eights. But Russ didn't mention them, and so Jerry didn't bring it up either. Instead, Russ gave the two neighbors a warning. You fellas are still young, Russ said, and things will happen to you in your young lives still. You'll have opportunities to show your courage, to make decisions that benefit other people, but you'll never know how odd the world can be until you've traveled the road as long as I have. You know, Jerry said, I kind of believe that. I've always been a homebody of sorts, but I don't know if that's because I'm more comfortable in my own yard or if I'm wary of what the rest of the world has to offer. It's something I think about. I don't know, Jerry, said Jake. I feel like our yards are out to get us these days. Not exactly the safest place. Trust me, Russ said. It's strange out there, and when you travel the road like I have, those things add up after a while. Takes a toll on your nerves. Of course, it's my own fault for going out there in the first place. All that weird shit out there, I let it happen to me, I suppose. I don't think that's true, Jerry told him. A wise woman recently told me that things happen or they don't. It's not up to us. Who told you that garbage? Russ asked. Your wife, Jerry answered. Busted, Jake said, laughing at Russ. Take it from me, boys. No matter how many branches fall on my head, I will always listen to my wife. The conversation shifted, and the three neighbors spent the rest of the day sipping whiskey and talking about more casual topics. The party went well into the night, and before it was over, more than one person mentioned that the event was one of the better block parties they'd held in recent years. More neighbors than usual had attended, and the weather was agreeable. Not too hot, not too cloudy, no sudden rainstorms. And as more than one person commented, there seemed to be a significant uptick in the number of ladybugs on the street that year. Not that anyone seemed to think that was necessarily a bad thing.